Hey folks, how are you doing today? Now, welcome to this course, or this free monthly webinar that we do as Grow Radio called. And today we're going to be talking about the beginner's guide to podcasting. This is all part of the Podcasting Toolkit, which aims to give you tools to improve your podcasting skills, hence the toolkit. So let's take a look at some of the upcoming webinars that we've got. As I say, we do a free monthly webinar throughout the year. Let's just make that a bit bigger there. So you can see that today we are going to be talking about the beginner's guide to podcasting. Next one, we're going to be celebrating the launch of the new course, Essential Guide to Keeping Your Podcast Live and Thriving. That's on 15th of July. We're into Grow Live between the 14th and 20th, which is our annual celebration of all things podcasting. So please check that out. And I will put a link, and I'll talk about Grow Live in a second a little bit more. Got the beginner's guide again in October because it's such a popular webinar. Standout guide, guest, and then podcast launch guide. So that's what we've got coming up over the next few months. Talk about Grow Live. Now, this is a week-long celebration of all things podcasting, where we literally are going to be celebrating podcasting as a whole. We have got lots of stuff going on during the month. Now, during the month with Grow Live, you can really celebrate all things podcasting. We've got featured podcasts to start off with. Now, featured podcasts, we are going to be showcasing as many podcasts as we can on Grow Radio. So if you've got a podcast and you want your podcast to be shown on Grow Radio and played on Grow Radio during Grow Live, please let me know. There's a simple form you can fill out, and then you can get your podcast onto the radio, onto the stream. So Grow Live, check out the featured podcast, and if you've got a podcast, please send us the details of it and we'll showcase it for you. You got a 5-day free challenge on Grow Radio during Grow Live as well, where we basically every day will do a 20-minute video which we'll share with you, and some activities to kind of go for throughout the week. So if you want to improve your podcasting skills, then this is a great opportunity and a free opportunity for you to do so. We've also got Grow Live Revisited, where we showcase some of the previous talks and sessions that we had in previous Grow Lives. You see, this is the third Grow Live that we've done. We did it in 2020 and 2021, and you can see all of the videos, all of the sessions on a special recap kind of channel. So please check it out. We've also throughout the week got special announcements. I'm going to be releasing what webinars are going to come up for 2027. We've got courses that are coming up in 2027. Plus also we have the launch of the Grow Radio Club. So lots of stuff happening during that week, but we are here to look at the beginner's guide to podcasting, and more importantly, the 5 ways that you can start engaging with podcasts. Now, let's check out those 5 ways before we go into them a little bit deeper. So first off, you can start listening to podcasts. Then you can connect with podcasting communities. You can become a guest on a podcast. You can sponsor a podcast, and you can launch your own podcast. So that's what we're going to cover during this webinar. So if you're interested in that, stick around. If not, thank you so much for joining us at this particular time. Or by the way, you can learn more about Grow Live by visiting growradio.uk. Now, let's get cracking. So let's check out the 5 ways in a little bit more detail. So if we're looking at start listening to podcasts, I'm not going to explain what a podcast is, because if you joined this webinar, you pretty much know what a podcast is. But how to listen to them, you might not be aware of the vast amount of places you can listen to podcasts. If you've got a podcast, there's so many different places worldwide where people listen to podcasts. So please, if you've got a podcast, put them on every single channel. Even if you don't listen to it yourself, someone else might. But you can literally listen to podcasts and actually engage with podcasts visually now on video with YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all incorporating video podcasts, video element of the podcast, because traditionally podcasts are audio, but also on audio, you can listen to podcasts in loads of different places, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. Substack. There's so many places you can listen to them, plus also the podcast hosts. Now, a lot of people listen to podcasts, and that is fantastic. But do you then follow up to after you've listened to a podcast? So do you use podcasts to connect with the hosts, to connect with the guests, to make notes? If you don't, this is my learning from this bit here. Please, if you start listening to a podcast, don't just listen to a podcast. Learn from it. Write down maybe a key takeaway, and write down who the guest was. Connect with the guest on social media. Connect with a host on social media and tell them what you liked about the episode. Do all that stuff, and you'll get so much more from listening to different podcasts. The benefits of listening to podcasts are vast. The main ones for me is I love learning about new topics that I'm not familiar with by listening to podcasts. Now, obviously, everybody who goes onto a podcast could have an ulterior motive, and you might need to sense check some of the information at different times, but 90% of the probably 70 to 80% of the content on decent podcasts is pretty much spot on, and you can learn so much from them. Also, to be fair, it's a good way to pass the time if you're walking or driving, and sometimes it's a bit of escapism. You can escape from what you're looking at instead of your world, and you can really kind of delve into that world that you're listening to. And I'm putting audio dramas in there as well at the same time, and audio books as well, because you can learn so much and really escape away from where you are, which sometimes you just need to do. For instance, I went out for a run just before this webinar, and I listened to a podcast on the way around. It was about a running podcast, and it was about a topic that I wasn't really familiar with. I now know a little bit more about that topic through literally just kind of engaging with it whilst I was running. But you can learn so much from listening to podcasts. You can also improve your podcasting skills. Now, this is a real cool thing about listening to podcasts, because it doesn't matter what stage of podcast or how you want to engage with podcasts, you can improve your podcasting skills by doing it. If you've got your own podcast, what you can always do is you can start figuring out what you like and what you don't like about that podcast. All the stuff you like about a podcast, you can put it into your podcast, whether you've launched it or not. If you're a guest on a podcast, you can learn so much about interview technique, interview prep. If you're going onto the podcast that you're listening to, you can learn about the style of phrasing that the guest and the hosts have. You can figure out how long the answers normally are, so therefore you can gauge your responses so much more. And if you're just a guest and if you're just listening to a podcast wanting to learn a little bit more, as you know from me, you can learn so much from that particular topic and so much from that particular podcast. So you can improve your podcasting skills all the way across the board. Listen to podcasts is really underrated, and if you've got a podcast or you're going to be a guest on a podcast, you need to listen to podcasts to hone your craft. Next up is connect with a podcasting community. Just have a sip of my matcha. Kept me doing a webinar about a podcast whilst drinking a matcha. That's just great on a live stream. Brilliant. So on section 2, connecting with the podcast community, this is a really underutilized marketing and networking tool, because within these communities, you've got loads of different people with similar interests, and we all have heard of know, like, trust kind of circle. Well, this bypasses the get to know you stage, and they go straight to like, because you've got a common bond with that person. So what is a podcast community? Now, these are communities that you can find loads of different places like LinkedIn, Facebook, Patreon, loads of other ones which I can't think of off the top of my head, where basically you get together with people who also listen to the podcasts, and you basically hang out. Now, the host might give you special content. They might give you bonus content. They might ask you questions about how to shape future episodes, like topic suggestions or so forth. But the main thing is you're around other people. You've got a shortcut to the hosts. So if you've got any questions, you can do that. You might be financially helping the podcast by donating something each month. You might not be. It depends on what podcast community it is. But a podcast community exists in loads of different places. And if you haven't got a podcast community for your podcast, I'd recommend starting one, because you probably have got people who will support that. Maybe not financially to start off with, but certainly in the future. Now, as I said before, you've got a know, like, trust circle where people have got to know you, then to like you before they can trust you. And how a podcast communities help with networking events is basically you get to know people on a person-to-person level, which if you're in business circles going to networking events, people are only there to really kind of sell themselves. So you've got a room of people just trying to sell themselves. Well, podcast communities are different because they're there to understand and learn more and just to talk about that particular topic. You see, I'm really into Marvel, DC, comics, films, and all that kind of stuff that comes along with it. And I'm part of the podcast community where we talk about what comics we want coming out, what things we want reprinted, what things are we looking forward to. And all of that stuff is really good. I can't talk about that to my other half because she'll completely zone out. She's not interested, and that's absolutely fine. But I can talk to these people because they are people to people. Now, occasionally in those groups, there might be a topic that comes up that I can help with professionally. And if so, if I know the person well enough, I can use that then as a topic to say, hey, I'm more than happy to help you out. These things have happened in the past. But the main thing is you get to know people. Your influence and your network can grow if you connect with them outside these podcast communities. So please don't just think of it as a one-time hit. It really is a place where you can really grow your community and grow your networking skills. Also, if you're a guest on a podcast, join the podcast community so you can network with the people before, during, and after your appearance as well. Also, if you want to build your podcast community, it's really straightforward because all you need to really do is put it out there that you're going to launch a podcast community and keep the information and keep the kind of content flowing inside it. 90% of podcast communities fail because they just stop. The host just stops posting in, or they don't know what to post. But if you've got a regular podcast, you've got loads of topics that you can talk about. For instance, if you've got a podcast that comes out every week, you've got a weekly theme or weekly topic that you can talk about. You can do a questions and answer session about that. You can put bonus clips that you haven't released on social media. You could put ideas for topics. Straight away, that's 4 posts that you can do in that podcast community. There's only 7 days. And I haven't even scratched the surface of getting the guests involved with it as well. You can really have fun with it. And even if you post on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and people know in your podcast community you're going to be posted on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and one's going to be an announcement, one's going to be questions and answers, and then one's going to be a follow-up, how you feel, and that kind of stuff, then you're going to be absolutely flying. But set it up. You don't have to pay for it to start off with. You can have a free one on Facebook or LinkedIn, like I said. But the main thing is form a community and then start telling about it. And then keep telling your community about it. Feature it in your podcast to say that if you like this and you want further conversation about this topic, join us in our Facebook group or LinkedIn group or Patreon. It's quite a simple, effective way of doing it, but it helps you build your community quickly. Next up is to become a guest on a podcast, which I love being a guest on a podcast. And I don't think there's any greater kind of privilege of podcasting than being invited onto a show as a guest. Think about it. Their host has asked you to come onto their show, onto their platform, so they can talk to you, and therefore you can give value to the audience because potentially the host trusts you to do it. That is just mind-blowing. That's brilliant. But people use that as a missed opportunity all the time. So here's what to do before, during, and after an interview. Now, before an interview, you really want to make sure that you're a good fit for that podcast. So before you apply to the podcast or even approach the host to get on her podcast, you need to at least listen to at least 3 episodes and figure out if your messages, your core key messages that you want to send out on a podcast fit their audience. And if they do, brilliant. That's your first step. You've done your prep and you've listened to it. Then what you do is you make sure that those key messages are suitable in the format that the host kind of gives you. So if a host likes long answers, you've got long answers. If they like stories, you've got stories. If they like really short, concise sound bites, you've got those ready. And then what you do is you contact the host and say, do you know what? I've listened to your podcast. I've listened to this episode, and I love how you do this with your guests, or how this guest interacted with you. Whatever you want to do, just to show that you have listened to it. Then say, do you know what? I would love to be featured on your podcast. I would love you to consider me to be a guest on your podcast. I think my core messages of this will really resonate with your fans. It will also match up with this guest and this guest. And I would love to kind of have the case to have a further chat with you. Now, some people, and that might be a message sent on Instagram. That might be a video. That might be an email. That might be an application form you might need to fill out. The main thing is that you are going to the hosts with a clear idea of how you can give value to their audience, how you will fit into their show, how you will fit into previous guests, and you've proven that you've listened to their show before and you've understood what they're trying to get across. That's magical. So do all that before the interview. And then when you get to the interview, you know your core messages are all sorted. You know your tech is all sorted because you've already prepped it. You've already prepped your kind of location so your backdrop is okay as well. You've done all these bits beforehand because you are really prepared. Then during the interview, you sit back and you relax. The host should take charge and should kind of guide you through it. They might have a little bit of a pre-chat beforehand. You might want to set up your equipment beforehand to make sure that it's all good and it all works a couple of hours beforehand or an hour beforehand. So if anything needs to get tweaked, you can do. That's fine. Main thing is you've got all your tech sorted, you've got all your messages sorted, you've done your prep because you've listened to the previous episodes, and you've got it all sorted. You've got a drink because when you're talking, your throat could dry up a little bit more. Like so, and then you're ready. You know, before this, I went out for a run, I had a shower, I took the dogs out for walks, I gave them some food, so I know that they're going to be quiet during this half-hour kind of bit. So I've got all that stuff sorted, and you'll get all that stuff sorted before the interview as well. Then during the interview, you sit back and you relax. You've got everything sorted. So then you let the conversation flow. The best podcasts are a two-way conversation where the host talks to the guest and the guest responds accordingly. It's not when the guests are selling. It's when they're just having a natural conversation and the people who are listening are just earwigging on the conversation. That's all they need to do. So for me, during the interview, you bounce off the host, you relax, you have a chat, you've got all your key messages all sorted, so therefore you know in your head what you need to say. You don't need to prepare it, it just comes out. And then after the interview, once it's gone out, you maybe want to do a post to say that, yeah, I've been on this podcast and I can't wait for it to come out. You might want to start engaging with the host on their podcast online on their social media a little bit more, so when you do your episode goes out, some of their audience might already know you because you've engaged and you've commented on their posts and that kind of stuff. It's warming the audience up a little bit. So when your show goes out and the host hopefully shares the marketing collateral, so the clips, the cover art, the links with you, you can then share it to your audience. This is where the fun begins because you can then place your podcast in loads of different places. You've got a Spotify playlist with all your podcast appearances. You can put it in there. You whack it on your website, your blog, your newsletter, your socials with the links and the non-links. You share the clips on YouTube and Instagram and LinkedIn. You know, you can do the whole kabang. At the same time, linking in with what the host is doing. Watch what the hosts are doing with their podcast. Comment and like and share their posts. Engage with people who are asking questions and who are commenting on your podcast appearance. If you're in a podcasting group or community, engage with them at the same time. All of these bits are going to help you connect with both the audience and the host a lot more. And again, you can use all of those as a networking opportunity to grow your influence, grow your audience, and grow who understands your messages. And to be fair, if you do all that, you are 99% ahead of most people when it comes to sharing podcasts. Because I tell you what, only 1% of people, not even 1% of people, share a podcast after they've been out. They've been on it. It's ridiculous. There's no greater honor than being on a podcast. It's your right as a guest to then share the shit out of it. And yes, I said share the shit out of it. So I'm going to do quick do's and don'ts about being a podcast guest. First of all, please, as I said, do all the stuff I've said. Prepare. Respect the position that you've been in. Connect with the host and their audience. Share. The don'ts, there's one. Just one. Don't be a dick. Don't be a dick on a podcast. It's as simple as that. What you want to do is you want to make sure that the people who are listening to you or watching you understand your core messages and understand your values. They don't care about if you've got a book at that point because they don't know you. There's no point selling a book or keep referring to your website or keep referring to your latest course because they don't care about it at that point. They just want some cool information. And to be fair, the best person to sell on the podcast is the host. You shouldn't do any selling on the podcast. The host should do the selling for you. And if you need to sell, you've done something wrong. You haven't done part engagement at some point in time. Don't be a dick. Don't sell. Nobody likes that. And to be fair, you won't get asked back. Also, at the end of every podcast interview, keep in touch with the host. Keep in touch with the audience. Keep that connection alive. And if there's an opportunity to do another podcast with them, take it. If there's an opportunity to do a live in their podcast community, take it. Doesn't matter if it's free, if you do it free of charge or not. Just take it. You want to build that relationship, and remember, relationship over task will always win. This is networking. This is person to person. So it's relationship building 101. Being a guest is the most important bit for me. Next up is sponsor a podcast. Now, this is the most hands-off approach you can have. Hands-off approach you can have when you're doing in terms of podcasting, because you're not actually really doing much during a podcast. You're not on a podcast. You're not launching a podcast. You're sponsoring it. You're giving financial aid to that podcast. So, how can you sponsor a podcast? Well, it's quite simple. What you want to do is you want to really match up your audience to the podcast audience. Actually, no, scrap that. You want to really look at your product or your services and match it up with podcast audience. And if those two match, if you think that podcast audience would really love your product, then that's the first step to looking at sponsoring that podcast. If you're looking at it as a business point of view. If you're just looking at it as I really love what this guy's doing or this lady's doing, really love the idea, I love their ethos, I want to support their cause, they sponsor their podcast, keep it going, that's completely different. And that's something that you really, really could kind of start doing, quite easily. But what you really want to do is you really want to start at kind of grassroots. And most people would sponsor a podcast for a financial kind of transaction. So you give them money as a sponsor and they will give you a bit of time on their podcast. It could be a shout out at the start, middle, or the end. It could be a guest slot. It could be have your logo on their collateral. Whatever it is, it could be different for each podcast. But somehow their audience is going to see your brand and see how it is. And the first step is to match it all up, and then go to them and say, would you like sponsorship? Are you looking for sponsorship? That kind of stuff. Now, some podcasts will naturally kind of go for that. Some people won't, and that's fine. There's also organizations that you can go to who will help support that. Regardless of that, you just need to match them up. Now, the straightforward, as I've mentioned before, why you should do podcasts, so there's two reasons: financial, because you really, really support them and you really, really like them, or you want to match your product up with their audience. It's one of the two. It is. And both are completely valid. But it's a great way you're getting your product or your business or your community to the right audience who will help you. Now, how to secure sponsorship for your podcast. Now, let's turn it around a little bit and say, if you've got a podcast, how can you get sponsorship? And the straightforward answer is you ask for it. You can create a media pack, which gives potential sponsors a bit of info about your podcast, such as listener numbers, listener demographics, content that they like sharing, episode numbers, links to where they can get more information, all that stuff. You can create a media pack. Some people will approach previous guests and say, you know what, because you've been a guest on the podcast, I've just launched the sponsorship options and wondered if you wanted to become a sponsor for it. Some might not, but because they've been on the show, they might get the ethos a little bit more and they might actually get the value. That works better if you haven't got listener numbers. If you've got thousands of listeners each episode, different ball game. You'll get sponsors, and that's fine, because people will say, okay, you've got 1,000 listeners. I'm happy to sponsor you to get my product out there. That's a different ball game. If you're a small podcast, which most of the people watching this will have, then it's different. It's more about getting your sponsors to buy into your ethos and values. So go to them. Start mentioning it on your social media that you got sponsorship packages, that you're going to be offering 5 packages for this season, and those packages are going to be X amount to X amount. Let's have a chat. A straightforward message like that might get a few people kind of interested. And if they're not interested in this season, they might be interested in the future season. So don't write it off if you haven't already, if it doesn't work the first time. The big thing that I see when sponsorship goes wrong is that you haven't matched up those bits. Either the sponsor doesn't like the show, or the sponsor's product isn't what the product doesn't work for the audience or based on that podcast. When both of them aren't aligned, it's just easier to cut ties and say, no, it's not working, let's stop. And when that happens, it sucks, but it's life. It sometimes happens. So for me, what you want to do is you want to cut ties and have a contract and have a kill clause. If something happens or it doesn't work out, then it stops at this point. Just make it non-emotional and just say it hasn't worked out. We've learned from it and we go from there. Easier said than done, maybe. But honestly, sponsorships normally only last a small while unless it's built into the ethos and values. And if so, it's going to carry on and on and on. It's a brilliant way of doing it. I've sponsored a number of different shows in the past. There's one show that I'm a long-term sponsor on because I love the community around it. I'm brought into it. I go to their events, and I'm fully invested in that. And funny enough, my products and services are well aligned with what they're looking for as well. So I get clients from them. It works really well for both parties. Last section is launching your own podcast. Now, and by the way, if you've got any questions at any point in time, please put them in the comments and I'll answer them after this. So if you're looking to launch your own podcast, you are in full control. This is the most time-extensive part of podcasting. So sponsoring podcast, least time-extensive. Having your own podcast is all about you. It's all about that. And it's all about the idea. It's all about the idea when it comes to podcasting and having your own podcast. And the idea has got to work on these 3 principles. It's got to work for you, your business, and your community. And people who fail at podcasting or start a podcast but don't really follow it through after 7 or 8 episodes, it's because they haven't worked on your idea. Your idea isn't just a name. It isn't just a graphic. It isn't about whatever you're looking at. It's about making sure it fits into your life, your business, and your community, which is what I just said. But the main thing is making sure that it does give value. If it doesn't work for you, or you haven't got enough time in 3 months to carry on, it might be worth delaying it. If it doesn't work for your business or business goals, or doesn't fit into your marketing strategy, it's not going to work. We all know that when times are tight, or money's tight, or energy's tight, or time's tight in a business, some of the marketing, some of those little fluffy jobs, they get sacked off. If your podcast is a fluffy thing, it's not built into the business, it's not going to work. And if you haven't got your community involved in it or haven't built a community, again, it's going to be hard sometimes to keep it going. So you've got to make sure it works. You've also got to build your network to support your podcast. If you're trying to do it all yourself, it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a pain. So you ideally need, a couple of people involved in it. Maybe one person doing the graphics, one person organizing interviews and organizing the back end, the show notes and all that kind of stuff. You might want someone to produce their podcast for you, so you don't have to worry about the technical file or uploading it or getting links because you get them sent to you. Whatever it may be, you want to build a network around your podcast. So if you do struggle, or if you are time poor 1 week, someone else can take the slack. Now, that might be one person, that might be a team of people. If you're trying to do it all yourself, again, when times are tight, when your energy is low, you're not very well, guess what? It's going to be harder for you to do it. So you really want to make sure that you have got that got that support network around you, so you can do it. Because if you don't, it's going to be really, really hard. It's going to be really hard for you to keep on going. And I've seen people stop their podcast not because they haven't enjoyed it. They've just run out of time. They just run out of energy. They just can't physically get everything sorted. And that's when knowing when a podcasting might not be right for you. If you know that actually you're moving house in 3 months' time and that's going to knock you out for recording anything for the next 6 months, now's the time not to stop. If you know you've got a website launching, a book launching, then it might be the wrong time to launch your own podcast. But just because launching your own podcast not be right for you at that time, it doesn't mean to say it might not be right in the future. Or being a guest on a podcast, which takes less time, might be a better way of doing it. Or sponsoring a podcast might be a good way to step your foot in, putting your toe in. So you are starting and you go from there. If we're working on a 12-month kind of strategy for podcasting, it could start with you sponsoring a podcast, then you being a guest on a few before launching your own. That could easily be a 12-month strategy, the start of a 12-month strategy. So knowing that when a podcasting or having a podcast might not be right for you is such an important skill. And saying no is completely valid and completely true if it's not working. So to bring it all together, there's 5 different ways of you engaging with podcasting, which I'm hopefully you understand now the differences between all of them. It's not just about having your own podcast. That's just one way. There's 4 other ways to do it. So let me know in the comments or write them down or send me via email, connect with me on socials and let me know what your key takeaways from this was. I covered a hell of a lot of information today about the 5 different ways, and there's so much more that I can cover. And because of that, I have created a course around this. So there's different courses available in Your Podcasting Toolkit. There is the podcast launch guide where I separate all the launch process of launching a podcast into 30 different sections. Being a guest, same rules apply with that one. If you want to be a guest, I break down all the different things you need to know. It's a comprehensive guide of being a guest on a podcast. If you're a children's activity provider, you can really get a lot from learning how podcasting can work for you. We've got this course, which is a beginner's guide to podcasting, which is free. This is the only free course that I offer because it's so valuable and a great way of people getting into podcasting. So if you want to learn more about what I've just said, or you got clients who think you want to share this webinar with, or you want to share this course with, check this out. It's available on Grow Radio and on Udemy as well. But it's a free course, and I'm doing it free because it is absolutely great to get people started. And also, if you're an author, I've done a course all around podcasting for authors as well. And just to make this a little bit bigger, these are the upcoming courses. So next month, there's the Essential Guide to Keeping Your Podcast Live and Thriving. If you've got a podcast, I'm going to talk about the processes behind it, how to make it simple, talk about templates. I'm going to be talking about marketing. I'm going to be talking about editing. I'm going to be talking about all the stuff that could potentially stop a podcast from growing, and all the stuff that's going to keep your podcast alive and thriving or growing in time. So that's what we're going to be doing in July. And in November, I've got a bespoke one just purely for shopping centres. So if you've got a shopping centre or actually a centre in general, out-of-town centre, then yeah, that's going to be a great one for you. And for upcoming webinars, we've got the Live and Thriving in July. Grow Live, as I said, between the 14th and 20th of September. Beginner's Guide is back on the 14th. Standout guest and a podcast launch at the end of the year, which is great if you're looking to start a podcast in 2027. If you're looking to start a podcast in 2027 or be a guest on a podcast in 2027, November and December are going to be fire. So that's basically it. That is my kind of little bit for today. Now, at this point in time, I am now open to questions. So if you've got any questions at all, please put them into the comments below. And I will quite happily answer them. Now, this could be anything to do with podcasting. There's so much I haven't covered because in half hour, you can't physically cover everything around podcasting. But to give that amount of information in half hour is pretty cool in my mind. So if you've got any questions, please let me know. I'm just going to pop onto LinkedIn to see if there's any questions on here. And there's not, but I can see that I am live on LinkedIn, which is good. which you can see there. And I'm going to give a thumbs up so you can see the delay that's happening on here. Let's see when there's going to be a delay. See why my thumb's kind of going up. There's actually quite a delay, isn't there? I haven't actually looked at this before. Look at that. Still going. There you go. I'm still going. I didn't realize that. Obviously, I'm just killing time now until there's any questions coming in. So yeah, if you're on YouTube or LinkedIn, please put your comments below. Yeah, I'm going to go off there. I can see a few people are live on LinkedIn. Crack in, and yeah, I've got a comment. So thank you, Veronica. Yeah, so there's going to be, so this is on YouTube and LinkedIn. So we've gone live, but it's going to be on LinkedIn and YouTube forever. It is. So yeah, you can watch this back, you can take notes, you can ask me questions afterwards. But the reason why I've gone live today is, or go live every month, is so you have an on LinkedIn and YouTube, is because they do save it as well, which is so handy. So yeah, there will be a link, and I'll send it out to my newsletter and different people after this as well. So yes, you'll be able to watch this back, and there will be a recording from there, or you can catch all of them on. You can catch all of them from there. So that's all sorted. It is. I think that's about it for today. Let's just see if there's any more slides. And there's not. There's 50 slides. Okay. Well, if you've got any questions, folks, let me know. Let me know, and I will answer them. But I'm going to make a move now. So have a great day, everyone. You take care, my friends. And I will see you all next time on the 15th of July for the next free webinar. Take care. Bye-bye. Gary out. And it's going to start.